Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast presented by BetMGM. Brendan Glasheen, joined by Sean Zerillo and Charlie DiSturco. Monday Best Bets, July 8th. We're diving right in. It's a 7-game slate, and it sucks. It is a bad slate. Both Charlie and Sean joined our pre-Zoom, pre-video chat when we do this, and they both said, without even knowing this, they both came in and said, this slate might be the worst slate ever constructed in the history of baseball slates. And they both didn't know each other said that. So Zerillo, why don't you that's kind of the best bet theme today, is to explain why. And I think that is productive for the audience, Sean, because it does also reminds us that in this sport, there are going to be days like this. So why? What when you look at the slate, why is there nothing?
2,430 games during a Major League Baseball regular season, give or take, as a result of tiebreakers or rainouts, but don't have to force them on every game. And 7 games for Monday, this is a pretty bad slate. Now, there's a couple bets that popped up in terms of value. We will discuss those, but nothing that I was intuitively like, oh, I want to bet that. And then also it's popping up with value. It's just there's value there. The line may be off. If I'm going to bet it, it's a numbers play, has nothing to do with feel or vibes or anything that I want to actually be betting. I don't want to bet the Rockies against the Reds on the road, but we may have to delve into that. In terms of my biggest edge for Monday's slate, that would be the Arizona Diamondbacks against the Atlanta Braves. You can get as high as plus 185 on Arizona right now at home. I projected this closer to plus 150. This was originally supposed to be Jordan Montgomery. The Diamondbacks instead going to go with Yolber Diaz coming up from AAA. High strikeout rate, high walk rate in AAA, strikeout rate north of 30%, walk rate around 10%. So seems like a stuff over command guy. I don't really have a scouting report on him as of yet. I'm going to do a deeper dive once we jump off the podcast for Monday's Payoff Pitch write-up. But his FIP projections out there from Fangraphs between 4.1 and 4.4. So around a league average pitcher to slightly below. Even if you downgrade him from there, like I said, I projected this line closer to plus 150. You're getting plus 185 or higher on Arizona. I would have to make Diaz like a 5.5, 6 ERA type pitcher in order to even get close to that projection that's out there. And I'm using a very aggressive projection on Chris Sale. He's currently second in NL Cy Young voting. 28% strikeout minus walk rate, up 6% over last year. Second in expected ERA, and then actually being Tyler Glasnow at a 2.6. So his, expected ERA down a run from last year. His strikeout minus walk rate up about 5%. His stuff plus rating up 10 points. So everything about Sale, everything he's doing this year is legitimate. I bet on him a ton in the first 5 innings. There's nothing I can detract from Sale in terms of saying the reason I'm targeting. There's none of that. If there was, I would be a little bit more confident saying Diamondbacks best bet, huge projection edge, and here's X, Y, and Z of I like the play. I really can't sit here and argue that Arizona has clear definitive advantages or anything that's exciting me about making this bet. The one thing, the one data point where you could say, hey, they have an advantage in this matchup, base running value. Arizona 6th, Atlanta 25th in base running value on the season. Now, Atlanta doesn't get as many opportunities to run on the base paths considering all the power they hit for. They're just more so moving station to station. But, you see the relative speed comparing these rosters. Arizona absolutely able to generate more with the legs than the Braves do. Just have more power hitters, a bit slower. And then defensive metrics. So by defensive runs saved, Atlanta is 7th, Arizona 15th. By outs above average, it's flipped. Arizona's 3rd, Atlanta's 15th. So I rate the Diamondbacks as a better defensive and base running team in my model. That is the one advantage I give them. I cut out the defensive advantage from this projection. So I could get this projection down to plus 125. If I put Arizona's defense back into this model, for this game, I could probably get this down closer to plus 130, plus 135. I'm using something closer to plus 150. 185 is a huge number. Again, I don't really want to bet it, but it's a playoff team from last year. We know it's a solid roster. This is not a bottom feeder, and getting plus 185 at home, absolutely massive number. So I'm honestly a little bit more excited to be betting on Diaz than I was on Jordan Montgomery, because Montgomery's stats are a mess this year. I had his ERA projection in the low 5s. He's getting lit up. His velocity's down. His stuff plus is way down. So it's actually an upgrade for me situationally getting Diaz as opposed to Montgomery and betting into the unknown with this rookie. But nothing like I said, nothing particularly exciting, just the numbers playing. I think it's too wide.
And with all due respect to Chris Sale, congrats. He's had a great year. 35 years old. He's more than just like a depth guy for the Braves. He's been a factor. If you're a number one name, 35-year-old Chris Sale on a baseball slate in July, I guess it says a lot about the slate. Even though it's just 7 games. So there you go. Charlie, a couple sentences as to why this slate just smells to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just every line. I feel like half the teams right now, right? We're recording this at 9 p.m. Half of the games, like, we're unsure who's starting, and it keeps changing. Like, Jack Flaherty was supposed to for the Tigers. Now it's Montero. Jordan Montgomery was maybe going to do it for the D-backs. Now it's Yolbert Diaz. It's consistent changes. We don't even know who's starting for Minnesota tomorrow. So such a short slate. It's just so hard to find value. So that's why I'm looking into the player prop market here. If I'm going to bet this slate.
And
you want me to?
Who might that be?
All right.
Sure.
Well, I will say it's also kind of fitting that I come back from vacation and the first Payoff Pitch podcast I have like 0 bets because this slate is atrocious. But it's also fitting that I get to talk about my New York Mets, and that's Francisco Lindor. I think it's interesting, right? Like, if you want to bet something and if I want to bet something and I want to have a little bit of fun, I think that this is the perfect opportunity to do so, because the NL All-Star team, the All-Star teams in general, came out, and Francisco Lindor was not listed as an All-Star at all. Pete Alonso got the nod, which, if you look at the numbers, Lindor is outplaying Alonso. Lindor second among all National League shortstops in WAR, 5th in general in wins above replacement. He's hitting .250 with 15 homers and 16 stolen bases. The numbers are all there for Francisco Lindor, who, by the way, since batting leadoff, is hitting about .290 with an .862 OPS. He's helping this Mets team significantly at the top of the lineup. Doesn't get the All-Star bid. You can tell he was upset in the post-game interviews today after he had the go-ahead 2-run single in the 9th. And I think that you could use this into betting and having fun tomorrow, because at noon, 12:35, Lindor will lead off against Mitch Keller to start the game, and all of his props, I think, are interesting to look at. To score a run is about -130 right now at the book that's only opened up. He scored a run in 10 of his last 13. That's 77%. And over 1.5 hits, runs, RBI, which is right now -155, which I honestly like better. He's over that in 11 of 15, so 73%. You look at Lindor, every number aligns that he should be an all-star. This is the perfect opportunity where he's going to be fired up to. And Mitch Keller isn't like this godly guy like he was, making this Cy Young potential run the year ago. He's come back down to earth. He's not getting whiffs. He's not striking out that many guys. He's giving up more fly ball rates. And against left-handed hitters, he's giving up about a 44% extra base hit rate. So I like to bet into narratives sometimes. And given that how ugly this slate is, Francisco Lindor is a great look if you want to bet him. I would look more toward the hit, run, RBI, or to score a run more so than maybe a home run, because he's a lot better against lefties than righties. But even against right-handed pitching, Francisco Lindor, his numbers are pretty solid. So, and when it comes to extra base hit rates in general, he's about 42% against right-handed pitching. So think that he's more than live to get on base. I think Brandon Nimmo too. Mitch Keller really struggles against lefties, and Lindor's a switch hitter, and Nimmo will back him right up. So looking toward the New York Mets here to start. They start the day. They start the slate. They're a little upset not getting these all-star bids. So that's where I'm looking. A bit of a narrative revenge play more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know, Skeens isn't pitching tomorrow, but I'm sure MLB Network broadcast, I don't know how many people have tomorrow off and they're putting the game on, but that will be at least I think the way they'll set the table of the day. Skeens being named an all-star, and the Mets can just dump all over that if they get to Mitch Keller early, and they make some reminders in that game. So, all right, very good. That's right. There is a 12:35 Eastern start tomorrow, Mets and Pirates. All right, let's do Fade the Public and see if these guys have any thoughts here. So there are your best bets. Kind of was a best bet segment, but not really. Rangers Angels is our targeted game for Fade the Public. 78% of the bets, 91% of the cash on 91% of the cash, on Texas over the Angels. LA, a slight underdog, Zerillo. So any belief in the LA Angels as a as the non-public side.
Yeah, I want a little bit better of a price, though. So I projected this line about plus 112 overnight. I would hope for plus 125 or better if I was to fire. Currently saw plus 120 as the best available price. I wanted to wait a little bit, see if we get a better number here. Rangers coming out today saying they're likely to be sellers at the deadline unless something significant turns around. And, I'm not really sure if it's going to happen for them. They're the team I was waiting on from a futures perspective, waiting for, the switch to flip eventually. Their offense has just been so much worse this year than it was last year. 93 WRC plus in 2024. They were at 114 last season. The big difference is at home. They were 126 at home last year, just the 94 at home this season. They do have the better bullpen in this matchup. I thought LA might have the bullpen advantage going in blindly, checking the numbers. The Rangers rank about 5 spots better in terms of expected FIP, strikeout minus walk rates. They do have the better bullpen, but I actually rate Davis Daniel about the same or slightly better than John Gray. I know he's a 27-year-old rookie, so there's not a big track record. It's been pretty solid through his first 2 starts. He doesn't have a good fastball. He's a really low stuff plus rating, 75 stuff plus, but a 111 location plus through 2 starts. And he didn't have like a crazy low walk rate in AAA, just 7%. So I think he has good command. I don't think it's elite. I don't think that 111 stuff plus or that 111 location plus is going to hold up. He has a really good slider, but that's about it. So I think he can be, like a number 4, slightly below average starter. And that's roughly where I would rate John Gray at this point of his career. Gray's stuff has been slipping for several seasons. 102 stuff plus in 2022, 97 last season, 83 this year. And he has a 4.6 expected ERA, 3.9 actual ERA. So he's overperformed to a degree, but you just see the slippage, the multi-year decline in stuff plus figures. So yeah, I mean, this Texas offense really just, I think Seager's been banged up for a lot of the year, and so is Adolis Garcia, and they just haven't hit up to expectations. And the bullpen really isn't particularly good, and their starting pitching, aside from Nathan Eovaldi, really hasn't given them quality innings. So yeah, I see why the Rangers are selling. They don't really anticipate that their team is at the same caliber as it was last year. Haven't seen the full breakout from Wyatt Langford yet. Maybe just, sell off the pieces that are only going to be relevant for this season, trade them to other teams, and then reset for 2025. Because they still have a pretty solid foundation and core. It's just a matter of, not starting off the season playing below 500 for 3 months. So yeah, it's Angels or pass from a side perspective. Just want a little bit better of a price. As I said, projected plus 112. So plus 122 would be my actual price target. Just want plus 125 when we can get it.
Charlie, anything here for Rangers at Angels?
No, but I will say a couple points just in general on the Rangers. I mean, you can't really win much when half your rotations hurt or they suck, and that is exactly what the Rangers have. It's Scherzer, Eovaldi, good. Heaney, Dunning absolutely stink. So, it's hard to really win that much. They're smart to sell. And also, can we talk? I talked about Lindor winning the All-Star, or not getting an All-Star appearance, getting snubbed. Marcus Semien, your 2024 All-Star, batting .229 with 12 home runs. He's one of the reasons why they're struggling so much too. I mean, you mentioned, Seager's been banged up, Garcia's been banged up. Semien has just not been good as well. It's just something's up there. It would be Angels or pass for me, but just wanted to point that out and say another shortstop. He got the All-Star bid as a shortstop, but Francisco Lindor can't get one.
Lindor is 5th in Major League WAR, I believe, right now. He's 7th among all players since 2019. He gets snubbed every year. He hasn't been an All-Star as a Met yet. Marcus Semien, 33 years old. Like, it could just be age. I said they have the solid core and this and that, but I don't know. How big is this Rangers window? Semien's 33, Seager's 30 and can never stay healthy. I believe Adolis has to get paid at some point. I'm not sure if he's a free agent this year or if it's next year, but I don't think this Rangers window is particularly wide open for a long period of time. Maybe once they get this pitching money off the books, the Scherzer money, et cetera, I guess the Mets played for Scherzer, right? The Mets are paying Scherzer's salary. That's how they were able to get Luis Angel Acuna. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe they reallocate the money or find a way to spend more money if they just invest more into this team. But this team has some serious holes, even looking forward for 2025. They need to fix the bullpen entirely. And yeah, there's position player questions even beyond that. Travis Jankowski getting significant at bats. It seems odd, even in hindsight, that they won the World Series. Their offense was just an absolute machine last year, and they look like a shell compared comparatively in 2024. It's a bit odd. The drop off is substantial because they were dominant all year last year. It's not like they just hit a hot stretch in October and that was it.
Right.
They were phenomenal. I mean, they were top 3 offense against lefties and righties all season. And then even from opening day, I think they were down like 7 runs on opening day last year and came all the way back. Like, it was the thing the whole year. They just scored runs in bunches at home. And I've been betting the unders on their home games lately. Well, Globe Life Field, typically with the roof closed, Globe Life plays about 5% below the major league average. Last year, it didn't matter. I mean, last year was an insane offensive park, even with the roof closed. This year is playing like an extreme pitchers park with the roof closed again. So roof is not going to be open during the summer in Arlington. And I've been banging unders, and hopefully the market doesn't necessarily catch on to the drop off in offensive quality. The team on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Royals. The Royals have huge offensive splits at home and really bad splits on the road. And it's gotten to the point where teams think they're cheating. Like,
yeah, I saw that.
Fan bases complain about them cheating at home.
Because their strikeout rate, it's the same thing that we talked about before with the Braves and Acuna, where how does his strikeout rate diminish 20% or 15%, whatever it was. And then this year he struck out a ton. And then he got hurt. The Royals are the same way. If you look at their home road splits, the strikeout rate, that it absolutely declines. And like, even when I'm watching, like, just from like a fantasy perspective or whatever, like Pepio, when he played the Royals in Kansas City this past week, I think he had 1 strikeout in like 6 innings, and he's a guy that gets a lot of swings and misses and strikeouts.
Yeah, the Royals have the best or the lowest swinging or strikeout rate in baseball, 16.7%. At home, they're 1.1% clear of the Astros, who are the next closest team. On the road, the Royals rank 12th in strikeout rate, 21.5%.
It's really interesting.
So, I mean, that's a huge difference. And the Astros, by the way, second, home and road. Curious if there's any other teams that have, nearly as big of a split as that, but that's fairly drastic.
Yeah. I think when it came to last year too, and you mentioned the Rangers, they got pushed by Seattle and Houston. They made that compelling, right? Those last 2 months after the deadline.
Collapsed at the end. Collapsed in that final week,
right.
Lost all those road games, and then just went on the road to start the playoffs and couldn't stop winning. So bizarre. Like, they were great all year, collapsed at the end of the year. Everybody thought they were done. Story was nice, and then sure enough, they caught fire in October. So baseball is such a weird sport, and that's why they're holding out hope. They're like, unless something drastic changes, if they just all of a sudden catch fire, all right, we'll play it out. Why deal the pieces if we have a chance to make the playoffs? But yeah, it seems like they're getting close to packing it in. As we've discussed, I think we've talked about it on here. There's so many teams that are in the mix with the additional wildcard spaces that the first team who says, "Hey, we're selling," you're going to get big prices for your guys. If you're the only one selling.
Yeah.
Seller's market.
Yeah, I mean, a 6 seed, if you will, has been in the World Series the last 2 years, right? Phillies and Diamondbacks. So Rangers did sweep the Rays, and they are 7 out of a wild card spot at 42 and 48 through 90 games. All right, underdog segment again. Just 7 games to look at. Sean and Charlie aren't huge fans of the slate. If you had to go, if you could get somewhere on a team, Zerillo, what dog?
Yeah, the Colorado Rockies, and also the over in this game. I'll give out my final bet as well, and we'll just wrap this thing up. But I projected the Rockies at about plus 135 here. I've talked about Ryan Feltner a lot this season. And just as a reminder, I view him as a league average pitcher because everything basically says he should be. His ERA is in the 5s, but his expected ERA is 4.1, right around league average. 13% strikeout minus walk rate, right around league average. 98 stuff plus, 100 location plus. So everything says league average. You compare his home road splits because he's been in Colorado for his entire career. 336 batting average on balls in play at home, 309 on the road. 58% strand rate at home, 65% on the road. So he's actually, like, even on the road, he's still worse than major league average, both in terms of his strand rate, his batting average on balls in play. You can't blame all of the poor performance on Feltner's location at Coors Field. And the Rockies are actually a league average defensive team. So you can't point to that either and be like, oh, high BABIP, bad defensive team. They're not. They actually have some good defenders out there with Tovar and Brenton Doyle, and they play decent defense. Ryan McMahon. So maybe to a degree, he's a guy who is going to underachieve. Once he gets out of Coors Field, eventually at some point in the future, maybe he will underachieve in both BABIP and strand rate, the luck categories, relative to other pitchers. But I still think in a vacuum, he's closer to a league average arm. Andrew Abbott is a much more difficult pitcher to project because Andrew Abbott has lesser pitch modeling metrics than Feltner, lesser projections than Feltner. I mean, most projection systems still view Andrew Abbott between like a 4.5 and 4.9 guy in terms of an ERA or a FIP. He has a worse strikeout minus walk rate. As I said, Feltner at 13%, Abbott at 9.5%. He was at 16.6% last year. But his expected ERA is 3.5. He's in the 91st percentile amongst pitchers in hard hit prevention. So despite the fact that he doesn't have a good strikeout minus walk rate, good strikeout on walk numbers, good command numbers, the pitch modeling metrics don't really show him as even an average arm. They say he's a below average arm. He's carried this really low expected ERAs. And this even goes back to like pre-debut and what I knew about Andrew Abbott coming up as a prospect in the scouting reports, where it was like the scouts didn't see it, but he carried good numbers throughout the minor leagues. I just think he might be a guy who is difficult to quantify because for whatever reason, the advanced metrics don't say he's good. The pitching models don't say he's good. But if you generate weak contact for long enough, eventually I have to buy into the results, right? I don't care what the indicators are if at some point you keep defying them. But where do you put him? I have Feltner at like a 4.5 type ERA. Do you put Abbott at 3.5? Do you put him at 4? Do you put him at 4.25? Do you put him where his projections say he is at 4.5 now? I think he's better than Feltner, but I don't know how much better than Feltner. So, I've upgraded Abbott pretty substantially. Like I have a process for how I adjust all these guys. I even have a process for how I adjust these outlier guys like Abbott, who I think don't necessarily measure up to their projections. So I've upgraded him. But even that said, I could upgrade him like I could put him at 3.3 on the ERA. I'd probably still show value on the Rockies here. It really doesn't matter where I move the number. I'm going to show an edge on Colorado. It's just how big of an edge it's going to be. So I settled on plus 135 as the number. You can get plus 165 currently. Plenty of an edge there. I also made this total closer to 10 runs, 9.99. I like the over 9.5 at even money. Would probably bet that up to about minus 110. Just the last thing, like where does Colorado have the advantage in this game? Because the Reds are not only better offense, better pitcher, better bullpen. They're the number one or the number one base running team too. The Rockies are 21st. So even on the base pass, the Rocky, forget about like hitting the ball hard, walking, striking out. The Rockies have to be wary of the Reds on the base pass as well, because they just steal runs and steal bases, steal additional bases on teams, both balls in play, etc. So yeah, it's really tough. The Rockies, the one advantage is defense. I talk about this all the time, but the Reds are a woeful defensive team. They've been a bottom 10 defensive team by outs above average and defensive runs saved for, I think, each of the past 4 or 5 years. This year, Rockies, as I said, closer to league average team. The Reds are 26th by defensive runs saved and 20th by outs above average. So there will be days where the Reds defense hurts them. And when you're a guy like Andrew Abbott, who doesn't strike out that many people, he's the kind of guy who can get victimized by a bad defense. So even if he does, suppress hard contact, even if he is really good at generating weak contact, soft contact, there's still going to be days where that defense hurts him. And maybe it will be Monday. But, as I've mentioned throughout this slate, throughout this podcast, not a slate I'm particularly excited about. I just make the Rockies closer to plus 135 here. I make this total closer to 10. So Rockies and over, or pass on this game. And I want to pass. I'll probably still have a bet, though, on Colorado, and I'll probably still have a bet on Arizona, even though I have very low confidence in either of those settings.
All right. Very good. Charlie, take us home here. You got one look. I think we've talked about this team already.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if the Mets minus 105, I think it's a bit cheap given the matchup. Scott, Keller, pretty even teams or pitchers in my book. I will say the reason why I won't bet the Mets is because, and why I'm looking toward the props, is because of the fact that the last 2 days that the Mets got the wins and made sure they got the wins, Diaz, Daniel Nunez, and Reed Garrett all pitched. Yeah. So back-to-back days, all 3 are gone and used. So now you're relying on the Mets back end of the bullpen to be like Adam Ottavino and whoever the heck they pulled up from AAA because they sent the other 5 guys down and they continue to rotate it because there's no one after them 3. So like the Mets here in general, I like Lindor, as I mentioned. I like Nimmo. Keller struggles against lefties. So does Scott. I also think it's interesting. Scott, 4.5 is his over-under right now on open of strikeouts. I'm curious, how that's going to go. The Pirates in general in their lesser split. We've talked about this plenty of times against righties versus lefties. Righties, they struggle more. Even their lefty guys are huge strikeout numbers. Cruz, Sawinski, etc. If they start Michael Taylor, I'll probably look toward maybe Scott's over 4.5 strikeouts as well. He was a guy that profiled as a mid-eights strikeout per 9 guy. Hasn't really done it that much this season. Obviously got called up against the Nationals and was pretty okay, except for one bad pitch. He was pretty solid that he ended up giving him a three-run homer on. So, I like the Mets as in this game, but I just can't get behind the bullpen usage that they've had the past few days. So ultimately staying away and looking toward props.
Yeah, I like the Mets first 5. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
I make that closer to -115. I make the full game line about even money. Normally I give the Mets a bullpen edge, as you said, Charlie. They use their 3 key relievers on back-to-back days. So normally I would give the Mets like a half run on a season-long bullpen ERA. I normally make the Mets about 3.6, the Pirates about 4.1 on an ERA projection. Tomorrow, dead even, because the Mets use their best relievers. So I was on the Pirates today. I thought the Mets finally gave me a bullpen blow up back, because God, I've had enough of those betting them this season, including one the other day. And of course, Aroldis Chapman, old friend, handed it right back. So,
I saw something that he has like a 6.4 ERA against the Mets and then like a 2.3 ERA against the rest of baseball. Something about pitching against the New York Mets.
I would believe it. If you give me 1 second, I can get you his career numbers against the Mets, because now I'm interested.
Yeah, and then
that was like, he comes in and it's like he has no idea where the ball is going, which he might not.
Yeah, while you look up that number,
beyond that,
it is plus 100 for the Mets first 5 is plus 100. So if you wanted to go first 5, like I said, I think the offense, the Mets have the better split. Mets are the better offense. Scott, Keller, I think are pretty dead even on who's better, and Scott struggled as he got up in the pitch count against the Nationals. That's where things kind of showed through, but I don't think the Pirates can deal as much. But yeah, again, I'm not looking toward Adam Ottavino, Jake Diekman, and someone else to save my day, whoever they called up.
I'm not sure what today's results did to the ERA, but prior to today, Chapman had 26 appearances against the Mets. He was 1-4 with a 6.2 ERA, 21 2/3 innings, 20 walks, 33 strikeouts. So yeah, 15 hits and 20 walks and 21 1/3 innings. That is a 1.6 WHIP. And what did he give up? 5 base runners today? 4 base runners today. So yep, only went up from there. And he apparently is abysmal against the Mets. He's worse against the Mets than any other team. So there you have it.
All right. Somehow we still mustered about a 30-minute episode here on Payoff Pitch for a 7-game slate that you both said you hated from the very beginning of the show. So that's good. All right. Excellent. And be on the lookout for anything futures-wise. I know Sean and Charlie hinted at some things that they're thinking about, but anything with more substance possibly coming your way over on the app or actionnetwork.com before we get to Tuesday's slate. So Best Bets episodes on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays during the season. Please rate and review. 5-star ratings and reviews are much appreciated wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, find us on YouTube if you're watching there. Subscribe to our channel. For Sean Zerillo, Charlie Cicerco, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for tuning in to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast presented by BetMGM. Good luck, and we'll talk to you again very soon.